Over the 3 years that Newcastle Rosebud United carried the flag as this city's representative in the NSL, the Adamstown club was its sponsor. Last night, however, members of the Newcastle United Soccer Club voted to cut ties with Adamstown and to go ahead with a proposal to find another sponsor or a buyer for their club. That last task has been given to 3 men, including club secretary Ernie Lamb.
And the situation is that Rosebud United no longer exists. We have a club called Newcastle Soccer Club Limited, which is now completely unencumbered in its constitution. It means that if anybody wished to buy the club or sponsor the club with any terms or conditions, then the club is in a position to be taken over, completely unfettered. In other words, they could do what they want with it.
The new club is by no means without its share of problems. To start with, the club is more than $27,000 in debt. And as a result of last night's meeting, Adamstown Rosebud has instituted legal action on the decision and to regain $20,000 that Adamstown says they lent the club. Ernie Lamb says it's vital that Newcastle take up the invitation to put a team in the Sydney Super League competition. Without a sponsor, without a ground and with the possibility of financial and legal strife, the new club has it all in front of them. If they fail to put a package together before the State Super League starts in January, then Newcastle will no longer be represented in a competition outside this area.
The body of the 45-year-old father of 3 was found here at Fennell Bay yesterday morning by 2 local residents. Police say he died after being beaten and kicked about the head. Peter Simpson was a respected member of the Toronto community, particularly prominent in the scouting movement. His murder has stunned the normally quiet suburb and left police without an obvious motive for the brutal killing.
Mr Simpson, from all intents and purposes and from all our inquiries, was a very well received citizen of the community. He has involved himself in community work for a number of years. He's a district commissioner of Scouts. He's a very fine citizen, and there's just no motive for this senseless act that's been perpetrated on him.
He was seen here at the Toronto Hotel by a hotel employee at about 1:45 on Saturday morning. Mr Simpson was sitting on a step leading into the beer garden. Police are keen to interview 4 or 5 people who were seated nearby at the time. They're also anxious to speak to anyone who may have been here at the Fennell Bay Community Hall on Friday night at a party involving about 100 young people from the area. And they've urged anyone with information on the whereabouts of Mr Simpson in the hours leading up to his death to contact Toronto Police on 59 1133.
The role of paramedics is to deliver advanced life support treatment to the injured during the critical period immediately following trauma. It's a system that originated in the United States. Professor Ron Stewart took medics trained in the battlefields of Vietnam and used their skills in civilian life. Professor Stewart is based in Pittsburgh, and it's there that Newcastle ambulance paramedic Alan Playford will travel next month.
To go to the United States, I hope to bring back some of the concepts that are currently being used in Pittsburgh and employ them perhaps in our ambulance service here. And I feel that any exchange of ideas can only help either service.
The systems used in the 2 countries differ greatly. In the United States, paramedics take instructions via radio from a hospital's casualty department. In Australia, paramedics follow set guidelines in the field.
In Australia, we're characterised by the protocol system, and we have some 63 protocols that categorise the major medical problems that we're confronted with in the street. And so in our system, we can implement treatment based on these protocols and start the life-saving process perhaps a little earlier than the Americans can.
Well, which is the best paramedic system?
Well, Professor Ronald Stewart, who is the founder, if you like, of paramedicine in the United States, has recently been here in Australia, and he agrees that this is the finest pre-hospital system incorporating paramedics in the world.
days of investigation, the team of more than 20 detectives has been working around the clock on the painstaking process of piecing together the final hours of the 45-year-old father of three. His body was found on the foreshore of Lake Macquarie on Saturday morning. Police say he'd been beaten and kicked to death. But the major problem facing police is how he came to be at Fennell Bay after he was seen at the Toronto Hotel in the early hours of Saturday morning.
We haven't been able to take or come across anyone yet that can take us past the 12:45 a.m. on Saturday morning when he was last seen leaving the hotel. That's a crucial time. If we can locate anyone that may have had any dealings with him, spoke to him or anything of that nature after that time, well, that may give us a bit more to lead.
Now, how are his wife and three children reacting at the moment?
Well, I think they're deeply grieved, but I suppose they're coping as best as possible. They're as puzzled possibly, I suppose, as what we are as to the motive for the assault.
The 12 students presented their marketing strategy to convention industry representatives last night at the City Hall. They found the convention industry was a growing one in this region, but still very much in its infancy. Greater coordination and joint promotional ventures between individual operators was necessary. In monetary terms, they found the convention industry across Australia is worth $375 million each year, but only 3% of that total comes to this region. A group leader on the project, Ross Alexander, says there is one priority the industry should now address.
One of our major recommendations is the formation of a coordination office so that we can minimise the leaks of business. If a person approaches one of the local centres, we want to ensure that if they can't handle it, one of the other centres is given the opportunity to do so, and this will be done through an independent convention coordination office.
Newcastle University's medical faculty was celebrating today because it has received a significant increase in funding for the diverse range of research projects that it carries out. The university received more than $500,000 in new research grants, and 11 of these were for projects taking place at the Newcastle Medical School and its teaching hospitals. The chairman of the research committee, Professor Saxon White, believes that their success in getting grants partially reflects their performance in the research area.
For the next 2 or 3 years, the researchers in the medical faculty will have a stable laboratory environment, and they'll be able to pursue their different kinds of questions and seek answers to the problems that affect medical science.
Is Newcastle becoming a leading force? Hello, I'm Jane Button. What does a study of depression in pregnancy and a study of cells in muscles have in common? They are 2 of 11 new projects to receive federal government funding today.
Join Ray Deneen and Anna Manzoni for all the news tonight at 6.
Newcastle University's medical faculty was celebrating today as it received word that it would receive a new injection of funds for its research projects. The successful outcome was not given on a platter and required intense lobbying. Local and federal politicians were on hand today to help celebrate the new grants. In total, the university received more than $1.25 million. More than half of this was to fund projects that are already underway. However, more than $500,000 was awarded to the university for new research grants. The biggest chunk of this will fund 11 new research projects directly related to the university's medical school. These research projects are certainly very diverse and range from a study of the effect of diet on the cholesterols of twins to the factors that generate muscle cell types. The chairman of the research committee, Professor Saxon White, believes that their success in getting grants partially reflects their performance in the research area.
They mean that for the next 2 or 3 years, the researchers in the medical faculty will have a stable laboratory environment, and they'll be able to pursue their different kinds of questions and seek answers to the problems that affect medical science.
Is Newcastle becoming a leading force in research?
In terms of the people that are here, the successful applications are very high in proportion of the total that are put in, and therefore we could be regarded as being a leading research faculty in that sense.
And have the funds that have been allocated?
Greg was at the university gym this afternoon, getting in some last-minute training for his trip.
Greg, Bulgaria tomorrow.
Yeah, tomorrow afternoon.
First time there?
Second time, actually. World Juniors in 1977. It was a good comp then too, so it'll be good to go back. I'm in pretty good form. I hope to place the top 10 this year. Placing 12th last year was a little bit of a disappointment, but my form has improved about 12 kilos, so I should be well into a 10th place.
Top 10 is pretty high company, isn't it, in weightlifting?
In weightlifting, it's excellent. It's good for any Australian or Europe or anywhere east of the European countries.
Sure. What's the best an Australian's ever placed in any division?
6th place. Right. Bill Stelios last year in Sweden, which was an excellent lift. He was right on form on the day and everything clicked for Bill.
And if you can be in the top 10, that'll be the first in the 52 kilogram section for an Aussie?
Yeah, as far as I know, so that'll be another first.
How much further in front are the top guys in these Bulgarians in your weight division?
I ran about 50 kilos in total, which is a fair bit in weightlifting. If you're 5 kilos in front, that's a good lead, so 50 kilos is a long way.
The Bulgarian you have to beat is quite exceptional though, isn't he, in your weight?
Yes, he's very exceptional. There's not many of them around ever in weightlifting that come up like him. He's just done 160 kilos. My previous best last week was 132, so that just shows you how far ahead he is. So he's looking at anywhere from 150 upwards, and I'm looking from anywhere about 125 upwards.
Right, he's lifting 3 times his body weight.
Yeah, that's correct.
That's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, there's not many people in the world can actually do it. I think at about 3 or 4 at the moment. So.
Council approved the construction of 23 townhouse-style dwellings within the disused old Caledonian Railway corridor between St James Road and Newton Street, New Lambton. Alderman Nichols moved that a section of cycleway intended for this area be constructed in conjunction with the development to save costs. A development application by the Department of Housing was also approved. This was for 46 attached dwellings of various sizes on Casuarina Circuit, Warrabrook. A proviso was that the development be constructed by the department itself. Council also considered a report on the condition of the block paving in Hunter Mall, a project of special concern to Alderman Gumaz.
I still feel that there's a lot of work that has to be done. I think within the report the problems are realised, and we will be discussing it tonight, and I will certainly be following it closely for you and I and for all those other ladies out there that are following it also.
The proposed regional museum will be built on the old Castlemaine Brewery site in Newcastle. That is, if the final go-ahead is ever given. At this stage, the issue has developed into a catch-22 stalemate. Last night, the Newcastle City Council invited tenders for the demolition and construction of the $4.3 million project. A short list of 22 out of 36 firms will now place their bids, but as yet there's no federal government assurance or backing for the museum. Federal government cutbacks to the Steel Industries Assistance Program in this year's budget has put the future of projects like the museum in the hands of Canberra. And a submission by the member for Newcastle, Alan Morris, is asking for a solid financial commitment before any work is to begin. The State Treasurer, Ken Booth, today said that the $1 million allocated by the state government has been earmarked by the Bicentennial Committee, and that his government stands by its original commitment in which the Newcastle City Council had to put up $1 million. It did, and that leaves the federal government holding the $2.3 million balance. A decision by the federal government regarding the Steel Industries Assistance Program will hopefully be made sometime during December. If it's any later than that, then time may be against the regional museum, because to qualify for a bicentennial grant, the project must be completed by 1988, and at this stage there's doubt as to when work will ever begin.
According to organiser Bruce Williams, the weekend of the 15th and 16th of November will be the biggest weekend in the history of surf lifesaving in Australia. Beginning at noon on the Saturday, the Cambridge Hotel Bombora Surf Craft Carnival will feature events for boats, skis, longboards and the popular rubber ducky rescue craft. On Sunday, a great surf boat marathon and a great ski marathon, both over 20 kilometres starting on the Hunter River at Hexham, will take place. $12,000 in prize money is on offer over the weekend, making the carnival the most lucrative of any on the surf lifesaving calendar. The organisers say it will be an appropriate and popular starter for the Coke Surf Trials and the BHP Steel International Surf events to follow.
They're the biggest events in the history of this branch of surf lifesaving. In fact, they rank very highly on the national circuit of surf club events.
The Minister for Community Services, Senator Don Grimes, today opened an $850,000 hostel complex for aged people in Scone. The complex was funded mainly by the local community, and Senator Grimes described Scone as a model community in the way it looks after its aged.
Join Ray Deneen and Anna Manzoni for all the news tonight at 6.
In the Maitland heat, coats were quickly discarded while Tom Uren planted a tree of goodwill in the presence of Mayor Peter Blackmore and the member for Hunter, Eric Fitzgibbon. Unchallenged for the Labor Party pre-selection, Mr Fitzgibbon will once again contest the notorious swinging seat. And as his guest, Mr Uren was quick to throw his weight behind the choice of candidate. The tree planting ceremony was quickly completed, to the delight of watching workers. Mr Uren then gave a commitment to Newcastle's Commonwealth Office Block project.
I notified the Lord Mayor yesterday when he visited us that we're seeking tenders of interest from developers who desire to make a building to house 14,000 square metres of office accommodations of Commonwealth public servants.
Now, a multi-million-dollar hotel and office complex has been approved by the council. Do you think that would be a suitable venue?
Well, it will be put out on the open market, and they can be one of those tenders that in fact make a submission to the Commonwealth Government.
Do you think they'd stand a very good chance of securing the contract?
Well, it's not for me as a politician to make the decision. They're examined by Commonwealth public servants under certain guidelines set down by politicians.
Last
In
year,
the
the
past
Pacific
9
Highway
months,
saw
more than 70
99
lives
deaths,
have been
compared
claimed
with
on the
56
notorious
on the
stretch of
Hume Highway,
from Hexham
making
to
the number of
Queensland.
fatalities for the
The existing state of the roads has been blamed as a major cause for a toll which is 3 times the state's average. Last month, concerned members of the North Coast Regional Organisation of Councils met with the Transport Minister Peter Morris to seek federal help to upgrade the roads. Yesterday, Mr Morris announced that the federal government had approved 23 projects and would provide $24.5 million for work on the Pacific Highway, which is a state arterial road. The money is part of the government's commitment to provide 1/3 of the funding for such projects. He says that the North Coast opposition group are trying to change the classification of the highways, which would have serious implications.
Those councils are asking is that the Pacific Highway should be reclassified as a national highway, for which the federal government then pays the full cost, and that the national highway classification be taken away from the link from Hexham through Singleton, Muswellbrook, Scone, Tamworth through to Brisbane. And I have told them quite clearly there is no prospect of that.